Today we are having a look at what the Revival collection did to the singles market.
Take a look at who I am now. I'm stronger than ever. And if you ever doubted me, you should've known better.
First of all, there's some new cool stuff on the Zero Damage Gaming website. If you go to the top, it says gear. You can get Zero Damage Gaming hoodies in various colors, always just with the logo. Also the hat that I'm constantly wearing. And apart from that, also backpacks with just the logo that I'm digging. I will be getting my own very, very soon. Apart from that, we also still have the minimal series playmats and just the playmats with art and so forth. So use the code SAVIOR to get 10% off. Now, talking about the market, I will say I do not intend to start a market watch series. I think Vanguard does it very well already. There's really no point for me to do that. However, I am more interested in talking about how this booster actually changed the market so far and how good it is, because I've seen many people talk shit about the ratios and I get why, we'll get into that, but let's just add some nuance to this whole story. So I'll start with this. Rates in these boxes are actually better than what I first thought when I saw the actual pull rates. I saw the pull rates and I was like, damn, that's not very good. I will say Zeroths are very rare. I think there should have been more. SGRs are very rare. However, their prices are pretty good and most of them are one-offs or zero-offs in G-zones. Triple Rs are relatively rare, but the prices are actually really good. And then G-Guardians and Stride Fodders are just dirt cheap, ridiculously cheap. Now the main question is why? Essentially, there are too many cards to be filling slots. This is a Fighters Collection type box, meaning in a pack you have 3 cards and you have 10 packs in a box. Now, if you're 3 slots per pack, 2 of those are filled by the very lowest rarity, meaning the Stride Fodders, then you have 1 slot in a pack left for the double Rs, triple Rs, SGRs, and Zeroth rares. That's just way too much. You only have 10 packs, you have 1 slot in each pack, so per box you have only 10 high rarity cards and you have 55 cards to fill those slots. By design, it's gonna be very hard to fill them all. Now the premium collection is completely different in that regard, because instead of having 3 cards for every single clan, you only have 2. And then instead of having hyper rare card like a Zeroth rare, we are getting the GR SGR thing. So GRs will be very easy to pull. We already saw that every single box seemed to come with a GR. And so by default, by design, there's just way less cards for those same 3 spots, meaning more cards will be printed more. Now, with all of that being said, what are the effects on the market so far? Note that generally, Fighters Collection type boxes have always been very cheap on release. The cards overall, like you had your little spike in release weekend and then immediately they drop down, all the cards are super cheap, and then over time, because it's always pretty underprinted, some of these cards become super expensive because supply is just low as hell. Now when we're over here on TCG Player, we can see that Zeroths are still expensive. And so like I said, I personally would have liked to see more Zeroths per case. Maybe 1 per box even. That's what I would have liked. But again, 55 cards to fill those slots, they were bound to be underprinted. That's just a major issue. But so Ultima is 73. Back when this booster, GBT14, came out, I believe they were close to 100. I think they end up creeping to like 120 and then falling down. 120 is way too much for these kinds of cards. But so 73 is still a lot for a card. Do note you only need 1. So let's say you play Golds and Royals and Shadows and you play all the United Sanctuary decks. You need 1 and that's it. But still, it's expensive for a card. Then the Drachma, we have $59. Still high, like we said. Honestly, I don't even know why you would play this card. You can run one, you know, just to cheese a win here and there, but usually it won't do much. Megiddo is 40. It will just scale with whatever comes out in the future. So it's one of those cards that if you like any kind of Magallanica clan, it's probably a good thing to pick up. 40 is pretty low considering how rare these actually are. And then we have Stark, 40 as well. This one won't necessarily creep with new support. Megiddo absolutely will. That's an important thing to realize. Zoa, 42. Once again, I think that's pretty low considering how good the card actually is with Sentinel restriction. And then we have Dust, 37. This card is being underappreciated right now because the rule change weakened him. But again, he will creep with new support because as attackers get stronger and maybe some multi-attack gets better and so forth, this card will just get better as well. But once again, the Revival Collection didn't really make these prices lower. However, I think in the short term, that's indeed true. They aren't lower, but I think in the long term they will be. Not necessarily these Revival Collection prints, but I've been seeing many people who like maxing out their decks, adding these to their decks, you know. So let's say I like Great Nature or I like Mega Colony. Oh, I buy myself a Zoa because I want it to be full art, and now suddenly I have an extra Zoa, a ZR or an SCR from back in the day, and I'm like, well, I can't really do anything with this, so now I try to sell it. But since most people are looking for this Revival Collection full art print, I'm having a tougher time selling them. And so I think in the long term, the ZRs and the SCRs, especially the SCRs, will really start going down in price because they were easier to pull than these and they're not as full art. So that's a little interesting thing. I don't think it's right now, obviously, because the market just didn't have time to react yet. But I think over time, the non-Revival Collection versions will go down unless you are Mugido from Bermuda. So then we get into SGRs. Now, interestingly enough, we have Perfect Performance Launch right here, the SGR. This card was bought out on release. And so I believe it was at 30 at release. Someone bought it out and it went to like 60 or 70. Then it started going down again because the buyout really didn't make any sense. 22 is pretty low considering how rare these actually are per case. However, many people are starting to value her less. Maybe that's also because we're not in a Link Joker heavy format right now. I think 22 is lower than what the previous version was, so that's pretty fine, especially because these SGRs are actually gorgeous in real life. But overall, SGRs are still pretty high up, especially like E-Gorge for 19. I know this card was bought out actually at one point, but still these are pretty high prices. We have, well, Geese, who cares? Again, the Purge, 23. Gancelot at 15 is very, very low. Gancelot used to be so high because it's such a staple. I'm guessing because Twin Sword is starting to look like a better card. But then again, you can Twin Sword flip Gancelot to give Blaster Blade resist. So like, you'll still have to run him. Sometimes you also won't have the counterblast to go crazy with Twin Sword, or you already have the Flogels in hand. So it's still a pretty good card to pick up. But so we're done with SGRs at this point, apart from the very, very low ones. So SGRs are still a little bit on the high side. But as I said, most are one-offs. The Ange, you don't run more than one. The Gear Chronicle one, you don't run more than one. The Purge and Gancelot are probably more than one-offs. But so we start looking at prices. Peak X Gallop at only 6.7. That is low. Ichi has been bought out, it seems. Its market price 7.8 meant that it used to be sold at this price, and now people are listing it for 15. So I'm guessing the premium collection reveals make people think that Ichi Kishima is a hot buy right now. The Revival Collection by itself did lower the price tremendously. Strides that used to be 20 per piece, maybe 30, some of these are easily going for 7 right now. So obviously, despite them not being that easy to pull, like maybe a playset per case or something, those prices did go down very aggressively. I have Cecilia right here, an SGR that's 4. That's pretty interesting. So if you want extreme beautiful rarity on your Neo Nectar premium deck, that's one way. Winning Champ Victor, 4. Balaral, 4. So again, like Balaral used to be a GR that you bought for 20 to 25, and now suddenly it's 4. Even though the pull rates aren't great, the singles are so damn cheap. I would even dare to say too cheap, given their pull rates. So if you're interested in any of the clans, I would just get these right now because this is so cheap. Over time, the best strides in this box will be bought out by people who see how cheap they actually are. And we already saw it with Ichi Kishima. The fact that she went from that 7, that way too low 7 if you think about it, to 15 in such a little while, like... Alter Dragon SGR, $3. I have no interest in affecting the market. I'm just letting you know my thoughts. Then we have Alexandro. This is actually really low. I know Alexandros used to be 25, 20. Same thing as the Balaral, really. A staple 3-off for a G-Zone, but due to being GR, being quite expensive. But then you look at this card, $4 for the full art version. How does that work, considering that in the original sets, they were printed, I think, as a 4-off as well, or a 6-off? I think 4. It's the same pull rate, sure, in a slightly cheaper case, but it's still the same pull rate, and it's so cheap. You can talk shit on the pull rates, they clearly did what they set out to do. Staple strides are super affordable. If you have an Aqua Force standard deck right now, you buy 3 of this. You buy 2 Ioannis, you buy 2 Galphilia, and you can literally start playing premium. Sure, you might want to get an old Titleist or something like that, like there's some commons you may want to pick up, but generally the G-Zone being a barrier to entry, that argument is just dead. Because most Seraph Dragons aren't that great either. Maybe Ultima is the one card, and that's probably also why it is the most expensive one. Overwhelm. 425 now went up to 8. That's an interesting one to take mind of. I know people are hyping Gridora quite a bit with the premium collection, so that may end up going up even more. Then we have Gafrail Eden, $3. Heavenly Law Gurgit, $2. Dragabis Luard, also end up. Probably more Fessa hype. We went from 3.5 to 10, basically, 9.69. Considering what you used to have to pay for SPs of this card, and now you can get it for a mere 10, like, that's insanity. We have our Vanguard, and not very important, V-Buster, Shibaraku Buster. Dirty Picaro is a pretty cool thing to buy. If you're playing Spike, it's probably a one-off right now. Dragon Masquerade Harry, not that very good. Like, as I said, same thing with Grand Blue. They really should have used the promo cards, like Nitros and Harry promo. Those are way more staple than these cards. Then we have our G-Guardians. Now, we haven't talked about this yet, actually. So, Strides went down by a lot, obviously. But G-Guardians... Jesus fucking Christ. We had certain flip G-Guardians, the Ioannis, the Spangles, the Negromora, the Zashihikimehe, the Linus from Spike Brothers, who all went to $15 to $20 per card because they were so underprinted. And this collection, Revival Collection 2, reprinted them and made them so easy to pull, they are literally cents right now. So when you look at Jinx Stealth Fiend, 14 cents. That is nuts. Bladermouse, $1. Negro Songer, 69. Negro Nora, 85. I literally saw these for like 17 or something crazy like that a few months before we knew about the Revival Collection. Because if you wanted to pick up Grand Blue, I had to tell you, oh yeah, you need this stride that costs a few pennies. You need another stride that costs a few pennies. Oh, and then you need this random G-Guard that's $17 and you need 2 because it's such a staple. That is nuts. And then this set reprints it and makes it less than $1. That is nuts, especially because it's full art and it's a very nice art. Mukuro, 60 cents as well. Elise, 50 cents. Amaterasu. This one actually was reprinted as a promo for shop tournaments already. So, but before that, it was actually insanely expensive. Then we have Uluru, 40. I think this one was pretty high as well, like 7 for a G-Guard at some point. Terrible Linus, this one was very expensive. So again, people were talking about the fact that Spike Brothers is so easy to turn from standard to premium. And that was true. Like, you had to get your main deck was $60, and then the G-Zone was basically free, plus Terrible Linus, who was easily being like 10, 15, 20 per card, and you had to have 3 to get to your GB8. So now that problem has been solved, and Spike Brothers is basically the cheapest competitive deck you can buy. 50 cents for the Terrible Linus. Sandy, 45. Jellydo, 30 cents. Also mega important. If you're playing Tachi, 40 cents for a full art stride. MP, Tregan, Ioannis, 25 cents. We're starting to see a stride fodder. I also want to talk about this. The fact that stride fodders were in such low supply that some of these were going to $5 per card. Obviously only the expensive ones. Like, for example, Sisolus. I wanted to build Royal Paladin, I think 8 months ago or something. Maybe a year ago almost. I was like, oh, okay, every card is cheap. Except for this guy. This guy was so expensive despite being reprinted already, because the reprint was actually triple R, so not really much of a reprint. Just many stride fodders started becoming dry because most people just had them in their decks, or they were rare, so they were unwilling to go through piles of commons just to find their stride fodders. And so the fact that these were reprinted is actually pretty cool. However, that also made the pull rates worse, because now your lowest rarity slot were all these stride fodders that not a lot of people were really looking for. However, they are pretty important. Now, some people are also saying that because of Progenitor Dragons, stride fodders are dead. They are completely wrong and don't understand the slightest thing about premium. So yeah, you want to pick some up if you're planning to play premium with your specific deck. Like, you really need stride fodders. Sure, some decks can get away with running lower amounts, but generally rewriting has value and you don't want to waste your first stride on a progenitor dragon that usually doesn't do much. Again, these are niche toolbox cards. You will want to stride them depending on the situation, but just assuming, oh, I'm going to first stride this card that really doesn't do much, but I get to stride for free the next turn. It's like, it's not really worth it usually. Suriel 30, Defeat Flare Dragon 25, used to be so much more. Marin 19, that one was pretty cheap already because it was a rare. Junior Spangled, Spangled was also pretty expensive. Atlantis Dolphin, even more. Stride Fodders, G Guardian, Stride Fodder. I think we're basically done with this. Like, we can keep on going through all of this and just see that Stride Fodders are cheap, and they are cheap. So I don't think the Stride Fodders will go up much, so there's no real hurry to pick these up, in my opinion. But I do think the Strides are very underpriced right now. Also note that I do not have a TCG Player store, nor do I sell singles, so I don't even get anything out of telling you this. It's just that if there's only 4 of a card in a case, and that was the same thing a year ago, and suddenly these drop from like 25 bucks to 5 bucks, maybe people are offloading these, but I would expect, just like with all the fighters collections ever, pick up the good ones for your decks because they're likely gonna go up. So that's pretty much all. TLDR. I wish Zerofs were printed more. Overall, the pull rates are fine. It had the effect on the market that it needed to have. And I would say this product is like an A-, I would say. Just a minus because I would have liked to have the Zeroth dragons in there even more. But everything else, like, it's super healthy. You can literally start playing premium right now for such low amount because the G-Zone is no longer a barrier to entry, apart from maybe the few unlucky clans that didn't get the ideal card, but the large majority did. I would say premium collection would be an A then. So this would be an A- and the premium collection an A because they do have a progenitor dragon in every single box, and also you have the higher rarity bling on all these lower rarity cards in order to make the whales, the people who invest a lot, actually pay for the basic rare singles that other people are picking up. That is all for today. Hope you find this interesting. If you did, please subscribe to the Solemn Vanguard channel, click the bell to stay up to date, like the video if you like the video, and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I will see you soon. Ciao.